Let's get into Master Worlds. We're both competing in it. It's coming up in 2.5 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Give me very broad strokes. Your mindset going into it is your first competition at Purple Belt.
Yeah.
Will be Master Worlds, but obviously not your first competition, because if any of you have been following Josh for the last several years, he's been competing a fuck ton.
Yeah. This will be my 71st competition. Yeah, first competition at Purple Belt. I feel like going into that, it's going to be the first time transitioning into like a new division, because I technically did compete at white belt. I competed once when I was like 15 or something.
Okay.
Like when I was in my teenage phase of like doing jiu-jitsu like once every like few years. Mm-hmm. And I competed when I was like, so like technically I have competed at like white belt, but none of that counts. So this is my first time in a new division. And like, to be honest, I'm thinking about it the same way as I would think about going into any competition, because like I don't think anything changes really, except like it's going to be a different body of competitors, and the level's going to be like generally on average higher than what I've encountered in blue belt. But I've also encountered some really good blue belts who had then been like converted to purple belts. It's like right. I'm not necessarily overly concerned about like the skill level differences. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing, and I think that's helpful also just for like there's newer competitors who have asked me, like they competed at white belt and they're going into the blue belt division, and they're like, oh my god, I'm going to be like facing blue belts who have been blue belts for 6 years or something. And I want to say, if somebody's been a blue belt for 6 years, they're not a good blue belt. Okay, I won't say that.
I'll come back with a story, but keep going.
Go back with the story. But like that, the use case of like I think that's like what's the word? An imaginary thing, because most competitive blue belts aren't competing in blue belt for like 6 years, so you don't actually like experience that, I think, on the most part. I haven't. I've competed a lot in the blue belt division, and like that would be a very exceptional use case if like you transition from white belt to blue belt into this new division and like encountered a 6-year blue belt. Like that's
right.
But I feel like you have a story that you really want to tell.
There is a story here. I am not the 6-year blue belt, and neither was Nick. And I'm blanking on his last name. Donut BJJ on Instagram. You probably know him. Yeah. I'm sure you've trained with him at some point. Yeah. Nick, good dude. We were we competed against each other and then became teammates, and then he moved to, now he's in Idaho, I think. In any case, I had just got my blue belt. I was a 1-week-old blue belt. First competition, and I can't remember if it was a local, I think it was maybe BJJ Tour, maybe Jiu-Jitsu World League. I think it was BJJ Tour. And Nick was my first opponent. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea like what I was getting myself into.
He's a big dude.
He's a big dude. Yeah. But he at that point had been training. I mean, he'd been training since he was a kid. And he got his blue belt, I think, when he was 18, and then maybe he was 20, 21 or something like that. He'd been a blue belt for at least 2 or 3 years, maybe even more. I don't know.
Yeah.
And because we never know, like, you know, some people have to take time off for one reason or another. Maybe they get sick, maybe they get injured, whatever. Like that could extend somebody's time at a certain level for a long time. But needless to say, Nick, that I found out later at that blue belt level, was like giving a lot of black belts problems. Like he was kind of a prodigy in that way. Like he just understood the game at a level that most blue belts do not. And again, I didn't know this, and so going into it, I went into it exactly how you're thinking. I was like, slap bump, let's go. Like I'm a blue belt, you're a blue belt, sure. And Nick chased me all over the mat. I think the final score was like 20-something to nothing. I didn't get submitted. That was my win for the day. That was that I just didn't get submitted. But it was like rolling with a washing machine that just hated me. And that was, and this is obviously not to like put any fear into your eyes, but that was my experience in like my very first experience with moving up a division, which I thought was really funny. And now it's funny to look back on, because we did become training partners, and you know, he really pushed me to be better, and I appreciate the time I had with Nick on the mats.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think what you're saying is just like that's a very, very rare scenario where somebody like is in a division for so long that they just like mop everybody.
Yeah, I will say though, actually, I think probably white to blue belt would be I've seen these cases where somebody's like winning everything at like white belt, and then they go to blue belt, and then they like get disappointed because like they start getting beat. So like white belt to blue belt probably is a big jump.
Yeah, I think if there's a jump from any belt to another, that's probably the biggest one.
It's probably the biggest one, yeah, because I feel like at this point at my current level at purple belt, I've like probably competed with people who are at this skill level of other purple belts who will be in the division that I'm gonna be in.
For sure.
And obviously there's all the exceptional use cases, but yeah. So I feel like that's where my head's at with it right now, but that doesn't change anything that I'm gonna do. I just have to like still go in there and just execute my game.
Yeah.
Right. It changes no matter what. Even if I was being thrown into a brown belt division, like I don't think what I'm attempting to do would change.
Good.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the right mindset.
Yeah. There is like the weirder thing this time is that I don't actually I don't know anybody in my division this time because I was in the blue belt division for like 2.5 years, right? And then so I started to know everybody who was in there, and I recognized no names except one guy and maybe a couple others. But Joshua Riddell, he's been in the blue belt division with me, and I've competed against him maybe I know at least once.
Okay.
And he beat me in San Diego this previous time, I think by an advantage, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I see him in the bracket. He's a nice dude. I was gonna start pretending to like have a fake like battle or something, but like a beef. Yeah, but there's no beef. But he's the one name I recognize in there. So it is interesting to see. He's pretty good too, because like obviously he got promoted to purple belt and everything. So it's interesting to see us move up the division and
Yeah. How many people are in the division this year?
I think last I checked for this purple belt Master 1 division, lightweight is 50 people. Okay. And it's going to be the same number of matches that I had last year in the blue belt featherweight division, which had probably like 80 people, if I'm remembering right. I might be remembering the number wrong, but 6 matches last year will be 6 this year too, because I don't think any of my points transfer over to purple belt, so I'm assuming I'll be like last seed. But turning it over to you, I'm curious how what are you thinking? Because what happened last year?
Last year I got injured the week of. It was a stupid mistake. I thought I had tapered correctly. I was going in for one last day just to work on some closed guard stuff. The room was sparse because of Master World. I think it was like my normal training partners were not there, and so there were people there that I wasn't quite as familiar with. I thought, well, like closed guard's my game. I can play closed guard. I'll be okay. And we were just gonna do like some light positional stuff. And I was training with a blue belt who's much bigger than me. And
those blue belts, man.
Those blue belts. I was training with a blue belt who was much bigger than me. And when it came to the positional spar, I started to stand up. He underhooked my leg to try to sweep me. And in my head, for one split second, I had a conversation with myself, and that was, do I let a blue belt sweep me one day before the biggest tournament of the year? Or do I like let that sink in?
Be in your head.
Yeah. Let that be in my head, like blue belt sweep me. Or do I try to fight out of it? And I was like, fuck that, I'm fighting out of it. And I stopped the sweep, but in doing so, I fell backward, like directly on my tailbone. I felt this like shock wave go through my spine. Like I don't know if I pinched a nerve or if I compressed a disc or what happened. It was so stiff. Right when it happened, I was like, fuck. Like
no more Master
Worlds. And so I watched my division. I like watched other divisions.
You coached me. That was great. Like you were like, I kept getting those ankle locks, and you were back there like, yeah, the boy. I was like, yeah.
It was fun to watch Josh on his run. So it was a good experience no matter what. Like, I'm glad that I went. I was really, really terribly bummed not to be able to compete. So this will be actually my first Master Worlds at brown belt. Not my first competition at brown. This is probably my 20th or 20th at brown.
20th at brown already?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
those stacked up quick.
Last year I did 15.
Wow,
and then this year I've done 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm like in that kind of 20 range.
Yeah.
So this will be my first Master Worlds there. There's 30 people in my bracket last I checked, which is a bigger bracket than what it was last year. Last year I think it was in the teens.
Yeah. It's 2 to the how many matches? You'll have like 4 or 5. It's like 2 to the, what is 2 to the 4th? Is 16. So 2 to the 5th is 32. So you'll probably have 5 matches for gold, depending on your seed 4 or 5. Yeah.
Right. And there's only one name in the bracket that I recognize, and he and I were in the same. We competed at American Nationals last year together. We did not have a match together. He got first, I got third, so I did not get a chance. But I was able to watch him in the gold medal match, and but he's the only one that I recognize. There's no other name on there that rings a bell. So yeah, but I'm excited. It'll be fun. You know, I'm trying to approach it the same way that, you know, just like any other competition. Come in. I want to win. I'm going to do everything I can to win, but I'm not like assigning moral or self-worth to the outcome of the competition. I'm going to do everything that I can and try to play the games, like the games that we've been playing in training. And, you know, I think if I do that, keep my wits about me, I'll be okay no matter what. So,
yeah. I'm excited to see actually what we both look like on the mats actually after like comparing it to how we behave on the mat, like from jiu-jitsu, like how our jiu-jitsu looks on the mat compared to like several months before we started training like this. I'll be curious to see if and what changes there are and like how we approach different situations and stuff in the competition.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting because we've definitely been seeing those changes in training.
And I've seen it in competitions leading up to, right? Like I competed last in Orange County.
Was that like 2-3? How many weeks ago was that?
That was maybe that was a month ago.
Okay.
I think it was about a month ago.
Yeah.
And despite losing both matches, I still felt like I was able to play the games.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was able to execute a lot of things that we've been working on in training, and that was really positive. I think I lost my first one by an advantage, which is what it is. That's part of the game. But I get my guard passed, and he came up to me afterwards and was like, "How much do you weigh?" And I told him, and I think we weigh about the same. Obviously, we're in the same weight class or whatever. But he came up to me and he was like, normally I make my grips and I like snap somebody down and they move. He's like, "You didn't move," and I was like, "That's right, I didn't move."
Yeah, he owns a strength and conditioning gym.
Right. So. Anyways, I mean, I think there were a lot of positives to draw from that experience, regardless of the outcome, and I'm just looking to take that mindset into this competition. It doesn't matter the size or scope of it. I just try to look at each match the same way and just try to go out there, execute, play the games.
Yeah, my mindset shifted a little bit. Well, it's cool that just don't get injured the week of. Yeah,
I'm gonna do a better job of picking my partners and tapering.
Yeah, that's the big thing I was doing because for me I was always being really careful about my partners because I was competing like so frequently, and this was for I guess people who are newer to competition. It's really important to be careful with who you're choosing as partners, so like it's especially important for competitors, I think, because if you, I guess people ask me that question a lot, and it's like newer competitors, it's like, oh, should I be rolling with the bigger people who are way bigger than me? It's like, if you don't feel comfortable, I have a joke now. I say like whenever I'm like the couple weeks out from a competition or whatever, and somebody really big who I feel like I might, if their weight just falls on me wrong, I'm gonna hurt myself. No fault of them or anything. I'll just be like, hey, I'm working with the size limit right now, a weight limit or okay. Size limit. I'll say, and just kind of joke. Most people like
I said no thanks. I got to drive later.
Yeah.
Like it's beer.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Or no, I'm trying to quit.
Yeah. That's funny. But yeah, be careful with the partners. So speaking of mindset, though, actually, since I came back from Japan was the Asian Championship like a few weeks ago, and that was one of the first tournaments where it started to really set in. Where because I didn't even want to go to Japan to compete. This was like major first world problems. It was because I had been like traveling all over the place and stuff, and I didn't want to take another like 10-hour, 11-hour flight to go compete in Japan, and I was kind of dreading the whole thing, and I was stressed out and jet lagged and everything, and I got to the mat, and I remember like in the final mat side, like all of the anxiety and everything, like the only thing left was like, you know what, I'm actually grateful that I could even be here. And that's like that's I think a very comfortable that's a mindset that I like. It's if I can just be like grateful that I can be out there like competing, I think that's it's not even that I have to be like having fun. It's none of these other things. It's not like necessarily having to force myself to have fun or forcing myself to have any sort of experience that the thing is not, but at least being like understanding that I'm grateful that I can like do that, because you know it's like something that I like doing. So that's
well, I mean, I think just from I think we share a common goal to just like make our jiu-jitsu as tight as possible and like as far-reaching, and you just see how far we can take this thing. Like how far can we push ourselves? How far can we, like how good can we get at this?
Yeah.
And I think approaching just competition in general, not necessarily Master Worlds in particular, competition in general, I think is the fastest way to learn what works, what doesn't, where you need to make adjustments. It will expose whatever holes you have. And that could come in even a scenario in which you win, right? You might win the match and be like, "Whoa, this was too close for comfort. That was lucky." I think having that mindset of just being like grateful for the ability to do it is humbling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's very humbling. Yeah, that's the thing I realized. Like, take away all the like everything else surrounding the competition. Like, you still feel good when you get first place, get up on the podium, feel like a badass for a second, and then that all like passes, right? Somebody else comes and wins it, whatever. So like, what is left is like just like I don't know, really just being thankful to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And that, you actually said it really well, like for both of us. Yeah, it's really like seeing how far I can push my skill set and how like what can I do? It's more like an experiment. Like what can I do? Let's see. Let's find out.
Right.
And if you like kind of treat it like that type of thing, it's we say this all the time, but like you can never really lose, right?
Yeah.
Like you can. You can go by the external metrics of winning the competition, right? Like those exist, right? But you can have also your own metrics of like what did you actually win?
Right.
What did you lose?
Right.
And if you can answer those questions for yourself internally, then it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be this like big thing. It doesn't have to be part of my identity. It's like
yeah. And I think actually Jess, who works here, is one of the strength coaches here, also a competitor. She'll be at Master World as well. She was also one of our first podcast guests. You know, she's said on a couple of occasions, has really resonated with me, is like, your opponent like doesn't necessarily need to be your enemy either. You know, like it doesn't have to be this like I hate you thing. You know, you don't
I
have to be
never
like,
feel like that,
yeah. But I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people get into it and they're just like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna try to fucking kill somebody.
I think that's
like,
a reation to being insecure, is fear.
Yeah.
It's like trying to force yourself to like be angry.
Yeah.
Maybe it works for some people to pump themselves up like that, but I feel like it's more a reaction of fear.
I would agree. Yeah. And I think, you know, I think I used to do that. Like as a white belt, I'd like try to like, you know, pump myself up like that and just like try to get mad and try to like, I don't know, I guess artificially
boost your performance.
Yeah.
What is that going to give you? An extra 0.5% maybe? It might even fuck up your game.
I think it did in a lot of ways. I think it, you know, I think it's important to appreciate the person across from you despite your contrasting goals.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's important to appreciate the person across from you regardless of what happens, regardless of what your goals are. Because that person showing up and being there and like pushing you is benefiting you, right, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so just being grateful for those experiences, I think it's important to take that mindset into whatever. And that doesn't mean you're okay with losing to whoever. Like, right? I think that's where, you know, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but like, I think that's where
people get it twisted.
Is they think, well, if you say, well, you know, you can't really lose if you're thinking about learning or whatever.
Oh, you're just a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
or there's like,
you're never
there's
gonna
like, you don't
win.
have that killer instinct. Like, listen, nobody has to motivate me to want to win. I want to win, and I'm going to do everything in my power to win. But I also understand that a lot of things play a role in who wins and who loses that I can't control.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? That's okay. And I think in accepting that, you're able to be more present, you're able to perform better, and the thing just kind of keeps building on top of itself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what areas are you trying to optimize? Like, are you trying to pump yourself and get pissed off and motivated to like potentially increase your like will to win by 0.1%, or are you focusing on what you can like learn jiu-jitsu wise? Because like the jiu-jitsu is probably the better area to focus on optimizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like
it'll take you further.
Yeah, it'll take you further. Yeah. And there's just like being thankful to your opponent. Like it's almost an absurd level of thankfulness. I think about it. It's like no matter what happens, like be thankful for it. Like when people have put me in submissions and I think about it later, I'm like, thank you for doing that, because now I have a path to like figure out how to not get like caught with that thing, right? It's like no matter what, even if it seems like something you shouldn't be thankful for, like try thinking about it as if you do a mental experiment. Try to think about it as if you could find a way to be thankful for it, and you probably will.
Yeah.
And it's
it helps direct your training.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Every time I've come back from a competition, whether I've won or lost, I've found something in any of those matches that didn't quite go the way I wanted, or or I don't know. It has helped me so much in developing like my game now. 20 competitions into brown belt is so much different than what it was when I first started in this division, and I have my opponents to thank for that in a lot of ways, because they've, like I said, helped guide what it is that I was focusing on.
Yeah.
They've shown a light on holes in my game, and for that, I'm thankful.
Yeah, if they didn't show up, you wouldn't have matches.
Right.
It's like,
Exactly.
It's like we're all kind of doing the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
cool, man. You want to wrap this?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Right. Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts? No, just gonna go there, try to have fun. This one's fun every single time. The one thing I will say is this is the first time I'm doing lightweight. I feel good now that I've been like eating a lot more and like lifting a lot more weights and stuff. Like I feel strong as fuck.
You feel strong.
Yeah.
When we train, you feel strong.
Yeah. Just that final note there is I feel strong going in there, like physically and everything. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of Thanks for the Roll. If you like this episode, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok. If you found this useful, share it with somebody that you know. Thanks for the roll.
Thanks for the roll.